Hello and welcome to The Charity Show, the podcast for charity insiders by charity insiders. Please rate, follow or subscribe to us on your usual podcast platform. And here's what's coming up in episode 14.
Thoughts and wishes go out to Davina, who we now know is doing okay. But yes, she underwent a craniotomy and she has been in touch, and as a charity, the Brain Tumour Charity, we have been supporting her. But yeah, a huge announcement that I think took a lot of the UK news by surprise.
How often do people ask you about the 2003 World Cup, Lewis?
Piers, we had the 20th reunion in November. It was a real eye-opener to that actually we probably need to look after each other a bit better, and that we came together as a group of high-performing, high-achieving individuals in 03 to create a really good team under the guidance of Clive and the other coaches. But actually, when we set foot in the real world and we all went our separate ways, we were really useless.
So if anything positive can come out of ChrisHoy's diagnosis, lobbying government and working with amazing charities like Prostate Cancer UK to bring about real change that could save the lives of men across the country would be amazing.
180 million crypto users and an estimated 1.5 billion in cryptocurrency has been donated over the last few years to charitable causes.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 of The Charity Show with me, Tim Beynon, Head of Marketing Engagement at Firefighters Charity.
And me, Piers Townley, PR Manager at the Brain Tumour Charity.
So Piers, got to say, first off, we've got a cracker of a show coming up. Fantastic to have former England rugby captain and 2003 World Cup winner Lewis Moody join us, which is amazing. Got a fascinating interview with him coming up, especially because right now, as we talk and as this episode comes out, he is crossing the Sahara on his latest charity challenge. So much more about that a little bit later on. But first off, amazing to have him on the show. But before we get to that, before we get to Lewis, it's been a bit of an epic week for you, isn't it? Lots and lots going on, especially in the wake of the horrible news from Davina McCall. So tell us a bit about it. Have you caught your breath yet, Piers?
No, we haven't actually. But yeah, all our thoughts and wishes go out to Davina, who we now know is doing okay. But yes, she underwent a craniotomy for brain surgery on a cyst, and she has been in touch. And we, as a charity, the Brain Tumour Charity, we have been supporting her with our information and our support services that we have there. But yeah, a huge announcement that I think took a lot of the UK news by surprise. But we saw such an outpouring of support for her, and of course, as the charity, behind supporting her, we got a lot of that traffic. We got a lot of that interest and a lot of that love that we passed on alongside all the wider support for what she's going through. So yes, massive news, and massive, obviously, shout out to Davina and Michael and all of everything they're going through. But all looking good. So onwards and upwards for her, and sending all our love. Alongside all the work we've been doing as a comms team and a wider charity team with Davina's news, we've also had a really interesting and amazing support from two of the band members of The Wanted, who are going to put on a one-off gig in aid of the Brain Tumour Charity. And the gig's going to take place towards the end of February at Manchester, in Manchester Cathedral, which is a wonderful venue as well. And the Brain Tumour Charity have supported the band The Wanted for many, many years now. We were in touch and supported Tom Parker all the way through his glioblastoma brain tumour diagnosis a few years back now, and have kept in touch, behind the scenes with the band and with Max and Siva, and the two of them now are putting on this concert. So yeah, all in all, a busy couple of weeks for us. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, well, not as busy as you, but lots going on there from a media perspective, especially for you. I must admit as well, I've totally forgotten the guy's name, but I did also see, wasn't there a BBC journalist who is in the news as well this week because of his brain tumour?
There was.
I thought of you when I read that.
Yeah, Glenn Campbell. He's the BBC's Scotland political editor, and back in 2023, he was diagnosed with a brain tumour. I can't actually pronounce this one. Oh, I will get this one wrong because it begins with an O. Ogliodendroglioma, I believe it is. So Glenn has shared his story and has made a documentary that aired last week now. I am still available, I think, on BBC Scotland and BBC iPlayer, all about his journey, his diagnosis, his treatment, and his support for all the charities, particularly Brain Tumour Research, and all the charities that are working so hard there to drive up treatment options and to faster diagnosis, and just to highlight the devastating implications of such a diagnosis. But alongside other charities, other brain tumour charities out there, we also did some media work supporting Glenn, and again, best wishes sent out to Glenn and his team and his family as well as they carry on. So
it's funny, isn't it, when these things happen, like the Davina news? I think she put a statement out, didn't she? And then it was everywhere really, really quickly. So as comms guys and as a comms professional, that's manic, isn't it? When imagine your phone was ringing off the hook on that afternoon in terms of people wanting comment from the charity. So do you enjoy those kind of? I kind of enjoy those kind of moments when when it's quite intense and the phone's ringing off the hook. Do you get a buzz out of that sometimes?
Well, it is the bread and butter of comms, isn't it? And it's the bread and butter of what we do as a PR team. And actually, you're representing the charity. So it's the bread and butter of what we do for the charity as well. That level of responsibility as a team, that level of stress, it is addictive. It is. It's like being in an old, we're both ex-journalists, so it's like being back in the old newsrooms. So yes, it does give a buzz. It is, gives you meaning to what you do. But I wouldn't want that level of stress, and I wouldn't want that level of working all the time. It's fine for burst. 24, 48 hours, fine. Longer than that, it's hard work.
Yeah, I get that. Well, my week in comparison has been quite quiet in terms of media. Certainly, we've not had anything breaking in the way that you guys have. But interesting this week, it's our charity AGM today. Actually, as we are talking to you, it's our AGM today going on at one of our centres up in Cumbria. And we've launched our annual report and accounts today as well. And that's a bit of a funny one, isn't it? Because it always sort of happens quite a long time after the end of the financial year. So we look back on 23-24, launching the annual report and accounts. So it's that retrospective look back, but also embodies a little bit of sort of looking forward as well. And I quite enjoy putting that document together. I quite like doing that. It's nice to be able to sort of reflect on what charities achieved over the last year, pull together some nice case stories to support it and that kind of stuff. So quite proud of the annual report and accounts that we've produced this year. And it's good to get that out there. Also, we're always really, really keen to see other charities' annual reports and see charities that do it differently. Some guys go digital, some people are, continue with print and traditional formats, but nice to see how people do things differently. And so, it's good to be inspired by others in terms of things like that. One of those things that all charities have to do, but there's different ways of doing it. So yeah, annual report time of year again for us. And then away from work, I've been blown away, and I'm sure you have as well, by Children in Need this year. It's such an incredible event. And the total that they raised, £39,210,850 in a day on the night, £6 million more than last year. That's amazing. And I think the thing that staggers me with that is that we live in an age, obviously, where it's all about streaming TV, isn't it? We keep increasingly told no one really watches, broadcast telly anymore. It's Netflix, it's Amazon Prime, it's everything that's streaming. So streaming is king. That's increasingly the way. But there's still obviously a place in this world for the good old fashioned TV telethon. So I remember back in the day, they were quite frequent. There's quite a lot of them going on for various things. Children in Need has lasted the test of time and is still going strong. But that is incredible, isn't it? Almost 40 million quid on a good old-fashioned TV telethon. So, yeah, I like that. Amazing stuff.
It is amazing sums. Amazing stuff. And it's an institution, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's, I remember it from growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I must admit, I don't know how you feel, though. I do love the fact that it's an incredible charity, amazing event. But the telly is a little bit cringy at times. Do you think? I don't know if it's because
some of it's hit and miss, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the sketches can be a hit and miss.
Yeah, but maybe. I think the presenters maybe try a little bit too hard sometimes. Bit of audience participation, kind of like, it's kind of a little bit cringe. But anyway, hats off to them. Amazing charity and incredible day.
Right then, let's take a look at some third sector news. What's caught your attention this week, Tim?
Gosh, this is something that's sort of really struck me over the last couple of weeks, last month or so, really. And it's a little bit like the Davina story we've already talked about. And this month, November, is Men's Health Month, and last week, as we're talking, was International Men's Day. So I wanted to focus a little bit this week on men's health and prostate cancer in particular. Now, this is something that that I care greatly about, something very close to me, because I was diagnosed myself with prostate cancer in 2017. But I was very lucky. My cancer was picked up in my 40-year NHS health check. I had no symptoms. I had nothing wrong with me at all. I went for this health check to fully expect him to tell me that I drank too much and ate too much cheese. But the end result of it actually was that, it confirmed that I had prostate cancer. Luckily, though, it was caught early. And after treatment and all the drama that kind of went with that, I'm now thankfully cancer-free and have been for some time, which is a huge relief to me and my family. But had it not been picked up until I was 45, the consultant told me, it would have been incurable. So I was so lucky at that time that it was picked up, and I was able to get the treatment that I needed. But all of that, is the tragic reality for Sir ChrisHoy, and I think that's why his story has really, really touched me over the last few weeks, because he could have been me. That could have been my story. So it's really impacted me. That has, and I think his bravery in sharing his story has been, really inspirational. And just as you saw with Davina, it's driven thousands of men to check their risk for prostate cancer through charities like Prostate Cancer UK, amazing charity that I lent on when I was going through what I was going through. And I know that they do some incredible work. And, they are saving lives every day. And they have a simple risk checker on their website, which apparently has had lots of interest and lots of people going to it since Sir Chris's announcement. And that's fantastic. And I know as well that the charity, like Chris, has been pushing for a national screening program for prostate cancer. One doesn't exist at the moment, which is a scandal in itself, I think. And that something like that should be available for younger men. Prostate cancer isn't an old man's disease, which is it's quite often perceived to be. It can impact young men as well. So it's really important that is taken into account. So if anything positive can come out of ChrisHoy's diagnosis, and honestly, my heart goes out to him. It really, really, really does. But lobbying government and working with amazing charities like Prostate Cancer UK to bring about real change that could save the lives of men across the country would be amazing. So I'm going to be supporting it as much as I possibly can. And to any guys listening to this, anyone who is 40 or above, firstly, I think you should know your risk. You should go to the Prostate Cancer UK website, check out your risk for prostate cancer, and if necessary, if you feel you'd like to, and I would recommend you do, you go and get a PSA blood test. It's just a blood test. We're not talking about gloved fingers and anything like that. Don't worry about that. It's just a blood test. Find out your PSA. Know where you stand, and then that will help you to keep track of that over the years that come. And do what you can to support this idea of this national screening program. I think it's a really important thing for men across the UK. So there we go. I've ranted a bit there. I've talked quite a lot, but Prostate Cancer UK and prostate cancer is curable when it's caught early. So let's see what we can do to sort of get behind that. So that's my sort of news/rant for the week. What about you, Piers?
Excellent rant there, Tim. And I've been inspired by you. We've spoken about this before. I've had a couple of the PSA tests over the last few years. So join your call to campaign. Get yourself tested. In other news, I think this is a really interesting development, and it kind of caught my eye only because of what's happening over in the States with Musk and his association with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and whatever else is flying around out there. And it's the news that Just Giving announced that it will accept over 60 types of cryptocurrency donations, the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, and so many others. I think this is really big news for the sector. The Brain Tumour Charity, we were approached several years back with a large donation in crypto, and it just prompted a load of scratching of heads. And fast forward to now, and it seems like a hugely logical and profitable fundraising development. So according to the Giving blog...
Piers,
yes?
Explain to me, because I don't get it. What really is cryptos then? How can someone donate crypto? How does that work? Because I will be one of the people scratching their heads.
This is where I stumble as well. It's out there in the internet, in cyberspace, protected away from the normal financial institutions. There are going to be millions of people much more qualified to explain what this is. As far as I'm concerned, it's witchcraft, but I know it's something that my kids talk about all the time. So I think the dinosaurs that myself and you, Tim, we're going to have to give way to younger fundraising corporate partnership teams that are dealing with this and will be dealing with this even more now that Just Giving have put this all together.
I don't think charities are going to know what the value of stuff. So if someone said, "I'm going to give you 1,000 bitcoins," that doesn't mean anything to me. How does that relate to pounds? What is that? Is that a lot? Is that not much? How do we know what the value of this stuff is?
I think it's a case of, as with the stock market, the values go up and down. We've seen, the news has suggested that with Musk and Trump, that the value of certain Bitcoin is one of them, certain cryptocurrencies have skyrocketed. So as that exchange rate, like when you're exchanging your holiday money, I guess the donation could vary depending on how much that is when it's converted into GBP, which is what Just Giving is saying the platform will automatically do and start rolling out. And they've partnered with the Giving Block, which is a company that's going to help sort all of this out. They've released a report that suggests that approximately 580 million crypto users worldwide. So that's two of us sitting here that aren't part of that, but that's 580 million crypto users, and an estimated 1.5 billion in cryptocurrency has been donated over the last few years to charitable causes. So this looks like the future, and it looks like Just Giving are embracing this. And one of the reasons they've said that these donations are becoming so increasing in volume is that any donations made through crypto assets, they're treated as being no gain and no loss. So again, this is going into territory that I'm not an expert in. So they're not subject to capital gains tax. So much like perhaps an example of gift aid, you can have these tax benefits to donating in this form of currency. And the massive caveat with me just talking about this as a news piece is that there's going to be lots of people out there who know it inside out much better than I've just described. So don't send into the show and have a go. Come on board the show, come to us, and let's see if we can guest you on and you can explain a little bit more about how charities need to embrace cryptocurrency, and we'll have to as we go forward.
Great call to action there. I want to get someone on the show to talk about that, because I got very little knowledge of it. Interesting to see how charities can get on board with that. How can we, if there's 580 million crypto users out there, how can we get them to donate to our charities? What do charities need to do? So let's get someone in to talk about that for sure.
We're thrilled this episode to welcome rugby legend Lewis Moody MBE to the charity show. Lewis played for Leicester Tigers and Bath Rugby and was part of the 2003 England World Cup winning side. What many may not know, though, is that for many years now, Lewis, along with his wife Annie, has headed up the Lewis Moody Foundation, raising vital funds, well over $1 million so far and counting, and awareness of brain tumours. The Lewis Moody Foundation has been key to the Brain Tumour Charity's drive to change the landscape in this disease area and crucially support so many others affected by a diagnosis. The foundation was set up in 2014, inspired by Lewis's friendship with Josh, a young rugby fan. Lewis says, "I met and then lost a young friend, Josh Rowley Stark, at around the time injury forced me to retire from rugby. Josh had just turned 16 when he died, and his death had a huge impact on me." Lewis has gone on to lead worldwide challenges for the foundation, including South Pole treks, Vietnam and Cambodia cycling tours, and Costa Rica jungle safaris. He's currently trekking the Sahara for the foundation and the Brain Tumour Charity, but took time out beforehand to drop into the show. Hi Lewis, welcome to the show. It's great to talk to you today about the Lewis Moody Foundation and your incredible support for the Brain Tumour Charity and your love of challenge events. But we've got to start with a little bit of rugby. How big a part of your life does the game remain today?
In terms of the game, I still love it. I actually don't get to see very much of it anymore. I still go to the internationals. My kids obviously love playing sports. My eldest is following a football pathway, which is really cool. So he's carving his own little sporting niche, but my youngest is rugby obsessed. So he's out and out diehard Bath fan, which I am a Bath fan until they play Leicester. But as more and more of my peers or colleagues or connections at Leicester, start to move on, my allegiances, who knows, they may swing to Bath more heavily, but at the minute they're in the Midlands.
How often do people ask you about the 2003 World Cup, Lewis?
Piers, we had the 20th reunion in November, so really weird that I know it's come around so quickly, and we've been through. What the reunion highlighted was that with whatever perceptions may be reached by people, is that the reality of the majority of the group has been that they've really struggled at some stage or other, whatever level and with whatever that may be, wide ranging from all sorts of things. So it was a real eye opener to actually we probably need to look after each other a bit better, and that we came together as a group of high performing, high achieving individuals in 2003, and that nucleus of competitive human beings gelled together to create a really good team under the guidance of Clive and the other coaches. But actually, when we set foot in the real world and we all went our separate ways, we were really useless at a lot of things. In fact, the majority of things. And we've all found that, well, I've certainly looked back and reflected on the irony of the situation is that, when you're in a team environment, you recognise, certainly in one that we were in then, where you're as good as you are because of the collective awesomeness of everyone else around you and their ability to do their jobs. And then you step out of the sporting bubble into the real world, and you have this weird desire and need and thought that you can do everything yourself, and you're like, well, everyone else must be able to do it, so why can't I? But when we came together in November, it was a really happy moment. Like, everyone just generally felt relaxed. It was cathartic in the sense that Clive and Tony Biscombe, who's the video analysis guy, and his team put a video montage and footage and training from the training camp in the build up to 2003 and commentary and all sorts of stuff. It was really cool, but we'd not done that once. You plan, in the build up to a game, you sort of plan, play, review, plan, play, review, plan, play. It's just ongoing forever until you retire. And we won the World Cup and we did plan, we did play, and then we never ever reviewed it. We never sat down collectively and went, we did some cool stuff. Look at that. And we sort of did that in November, in different circumstances. And people, Jono and Clive said a few words, Tin said a few words, and Joe, it was really nice. It was really special. It just reminded you that we had a real special group of people that came together at a special time. That doesn't mean we're all really close. In fact, probably far from it. But when we come back together, it does connect you to that moment again and makes you feel very close to those individuals.
So what did you find to be the biggest challenge then when you did step away, when you did hang up your boots? What did you find was the biggest challenge?
That's a good question. What is the biggest challenge? I mean, there were lots of challenges, and you don't, as a sportsman of the era that I came through, admitting weakness and vulnerability and all that sort of stuff wasn't really something you ever did, because it gave people ammunition and it was just a sign of weakness wrongly, So I wouldn't, in the first few years I retired, if you'd spoken to me, you would have been, how are you? Yeah, great. Really busy. It's great. Really busy. I was busy doing all sorts of stuff, with no direction and no sense of purpose and no clarity on why I was doing it. I was just doing. And that was okay for a little while. But I think you lose your, people talk about all the time, identity, purpose. Your identity is, whatever arguments people want to throw at it, I am Lewis Moody first and foremost, and there are a distinct set of characteristics and traits and behaviours that go with Lewis Moody. But then you are, from the age of 18 or even younger, really 16, 14, that I started at Leicester, you are Lewis Moody, the rugby player. And as soon as you become that in everyone else's eyes, it's very difficult to disassociate yourself with that and realise that there is a human being underneath that who has a different skill set to playing rugby. And it may be none of the things that you're aware of as an individual or that people are aware of. And actually there are two challenges that you have to overcome. And one is your own sort of pride, as in when you're leaving that arena, and if you played, at the highest level, like I got to do for a long period of time, and that's captain my country and all that sort of jazz, people have this image of you, and that you should be on, in charge of stuff and, leading stuff. And, you'll have this sort of very direct approach. You probably, they just make assumptions about what you should be doing, and they share them with you. And therefore that starts to sort of, seep into your brain as well and into your thinking. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a really good point. I should probably be in business, or I should probably running some sort of business, I don't know, finance, insurance, and you sort of go down these pathways with no understanding of the world as it is, outside of sport, really. Well, I talk about myself. I didn't anyway, and then so you've got that vision of what you should be doing. You listen to those voices. So one of the hardest things is putting those voices to bed, and then you've got the reality in your own brain of, so what you think you should be doing from what you've been told, but actually what you inherently want to do. A lot of things that I wanted to do had nothing to do with that. So I was lost for a long time, really, and actually meeting Joss. So I suppose the segue into the foundation is the loss that rugby, or the void that rugby created, I suppose, in my life was weirdly and ironically replaced, without me even meaning or intending to, by it started with a letter in the post from Graham. We met Joss. Graham was Joss's dad. He sent a handwritten letter in the post. That's what piqued my interest. So I went up to Sheffield and met the family. And the letter just said, look, Joss has got a rare form of cancer. Is there anything you can do? Could you come and support? He's trying to raise some money for his mates to go on towards South Africa. So went up, met Joss, met Tiff, met Graham, met Leo. Wonderful family, met the team, ran a training session. Joss couldn't train because he was undergoing treatment at the time. So it started a connection with the family that sort of grew over the next year and a half, and to the point where about a year and a half later, Graham called to say that the lads are struggling a bit because Joss is in hospital so much and he's undergoing treatment and all the medication and all that sort of jazz. The focus hasn't been on Leo. We've just been concentrating on Joss. I think Leo was maybe 12, 13 at the time. So they said, is there anything I could do to help? Basically do a sort of day out of the ordinary. So sorted a match at Twickenham, and we had pre and post game hospitality. You went down, really, hosted by the CEO of the RFU, and it was a lovely day. It was a game that we should and we did win against the Welsh when they weren't quite as good. And after the game, went down into the change room and met all the, Chris Robshaw kindly let us come into the change room. So the lads, Joss and they, wandered around, met all the players, autographs, signatures, pictures, etc. And then we went upstairs to the post-match, which is in the spirit of rugby, which is sort of a big, smart occasion where all the alakadoos and the captains and the teams come together and you sit on the table, and players normally sit with the opposition. But I managed to wangle that me, Joss, and Leo could sit on a table with a group of the lads. I think it was Manu, Tuolangi, Maku, Vunapola, and Dan Cole, and Joss, as a 15-year-old, he probably would have been at the time. As you know, he would have just
starstruck.
Yeah, yes. Well, no, he wasn't. He was very happy to tell them where they should have done better in the game, which was highly amusing for me, because you got these like 20-stone Neanderthals opposite, and Joss was, a lithe, 6 foot, but a fairly skinny lad. And anyway, after the call, after the day, Graham called up and said, look, the lads had a fantastic time. I got stuff everywhere, paraphernalia around the house, flags, scarves, pictures. And at the end of the call, just said, but I'm really sorry, Joss passed away yesterday. And that was, just a couple of days after the event. So it was a very moving and poignant connection for me and Annie, I think, having got to know the guys and Joss in particular, I was in regular contact with during that year and a half. And the irony, I suppose, the situation was that Graham came searching for support from me to help Leo, whereas actually they helped me far more than I was ever going to be able to help them or Joss. And as I look back now, that meeting with Joss gave me a purpose. Joss's passing meant that we created the foundation. Joss didn't actually pass of a brain tumour. I don't know whether you guys know that, but Joss had a rare form of blood cancer. But me and Annie decided that we wanted to support a cancer charity that affected young families. And we had a chat with a various group of people. And one of them was Andy Foote, who had the Joseph Foote Foundation, which merged with numerous others, right, and became the Brain Tumour Charity. And when we started chatting to Andy and understanding a bit more, and we met Sarah Lindsall, who was the former CEO, it was apparent that if we were going to do anything, we wanted to do it for a cancer charity that needed support and an illness that was affecting so many, yet didn't seem to have changed or had much impact. So I suppose our thinking was that, where can we help the most, I suppose, was what we were thinking at the time. So we ploughed all of our charitable efforts into the foundation. We set up the Lewis Moody Foundation and the Brain Tumour Charity. They administer us, which is wonderful. So we get the beauty of the wisdom and the knowledge that everyone at the charity has, and the connections and the understanding and the links, and we're able to fund specific projects over the last 10 years. It's been 10 years now that we've done it. Graham, as in Joss's dad, did his first challenge just after lockdown, which was pretty cool. He lost an enormous amount of weight to do it, and he always promised himself he would, and he did. And we've been doing challenges ever since. So our first challenge, a friend of mine was Alan Chambers. He's still alive. Be very worried if we say that. He's a polar explorer, Britain's first explorer to the North Pole, unsupported. And he was like, well, mate, if we're going to do some challenges, why don't we go to the North Pole? I was like, I was thinking like a marathon or, maybe something small. But so yeah, that's where we started. And we did a trip to the North Pole, and then we did a series of events called the Heads Up series, where Wyco, who are, top set lads, Charlie and Gary, sponsored the trips, and we did all the points of the compass. We did the North Pole. East was Vietnam and Cambodia, 1,000 miles. Then we did, South Pole. We actually didn't do it in that order. We did East, then we did West, because we ran out of time to plan the South Pole. So we went to Costa Rica, and then we went to the South Pole. But anyway, we've done a load of events, and since then it's been, nearly just over 2.3 million, which for me and Annie and the small groups of people that we take on these challenges, we're pretty proud of. I think we'd always like to be able to do more. I wish we could have raised more at this stage, but we're at where we're at, and we're off to the Sahara in November with another group of eclectic group of people who are connected or not connected to brain tumours. We've got someone who's lost a mum, so is emotionally connected to the challenge, which is great, in the cause. And then everyone else is just in it for different reasons, whether it's challenging themselves, whether it's getting out of their comfort zone, whether it's meeting people, whether it's doing something different, all for a good cause. Then
you didn't jump into, with the foundation, Lewis, you didn't jump into a bake sale then, did you? You just thought, let's go to the most extreme places on the planet.
Well, I suppose selfishly, when we set up the foundation, sorry, there's an ambulance just passing if you can hear it. There was, the bit that rugby took away, or the void that created, the charity in many ways. I was looking at going, well, if we're going to have a charity, I want to be able to do things that I'm really invested in. And I suppose for me, I love challenging myself and taking myself out of my comfort zone, but doing it with a group of people. So it's never a race. It's just about getting from A to B. And we could have started easy, but easy's boring. Easy's boring.
I want to talk to you about the challenge. I want to find out more about the challenge events in particular. But just going back a step, in terms of the foundation itself, was that a steep learning curve in terms of the admin side of things and how you go about setting up a foundation?
100%. And anyone that knows me knows that admin is definitely not on my list of quality traits. So, I'm all about action and doing and energy, and, getting lost in the detail of stuff is not my strong suit. That's, my wife is brilliant at that, which is why we make a great pair. And in all honesty, she does all that. And, the support that we get from the Brain Tumour Charity meant that from the start we had a wonderful lady called Claire who really ran the charity for 5 years, Claire Wormley, and she was just gold. And she made all of my sort of harebrained ideas and ambitions and great, desires to raise enormous amounts of money and do stupid and silly things. She put them into practice, basically. She'd tell me what I needed to do to be able for that. So, we've all got our skills, right? And I suppose, we became a little team for the 5 years that we were together, Claire, Annie, and I, and our skills worked well. And we work in a slightly different way now because of the change of COVID and the impact that had, especially on charities, right? Because it's tough. But so yeah, we work slightly differently now, but we still do the same thing. We still have a great connection and relationship with the Brain Tumour Charity, and I feel like COVID probably brought us slightly closer now, whereas maybe before we felt like we were sort of slightly disconnected and doing a lot of things on our own.
In terms of how the charity works, in terms of funding, are you the funding? Are the challenge events the funding? Is that where your primary source of income?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the majority of our fundraising comes from challenges. Over the years, it has varied. So the sad reality of being a former professional sportsman is that, and not being a footballer and being a rugby player, is that I still need to earn a living. And the time that I was afforded when I first retired, so the first 5 years, where I had much more freedom to go and do multiple challenges and multiple events. And we had dinners over the years, which have been awesome, which I absolutely loved and have been so well supported by a vast array of just wonderful people from, whether you're taking tables or any of the celebs that we had. And we had a real mix and array over the years, to the people living with brain tumours, the families, those that are affected, coming and talking and sharing their stories. So it's been a real team effort along the way. But as we move forward, and my time becomes much more of a commodity because, that's the wrong way of putting it. Actually, my time just has to be repurposed in the right way so that I can have the impact that I would like with a much more reduced time schedule. So things that we do moving forward will be mostly just the challenges. But I hope that we can still, as things change and the years move on, we can squeeze in a few other events here and there. I still try and get to the family days that we fund as often as I can. Obviously, COVID changed a few, quite a lot to do with that. But yeah, I mean, your question was, and I've gone all around the houses with the answer, is that yes, we mainly raise money. Our fundraising is through the challenges or other events, but mostly the challenges.
Focusing on the challenges, Lewis, I'm struck by, and it kind of is clicking in my mind, the similarities of you having to work as a world-winning rugby team and then having to put up with trekking to the South Pole, for example. There must be some similarities in those kind of extreme fundraising challenges that you're doing. Well,
I definitely wouldn't describe it as putting it up with going to the South Pole. I love it. Honestly, that's where I feel most alive. When you are really out of your comfort zone and being at minus 40 odd in the middle of a continent where it's so vast, all you can see around you is white snow and ice. That is it. Nothing. No other human beings. No nothing. No great blade of grass, dust, nothing. Just white. It is. If you are of a certain disposition, you would find that enormously overwhelming. And we've had people on the trips we've been on who have found that. But because of the nature of the trips, it's just about getting from A to B. And I'm not trying to make out that we went from the coast to the pole. We've done the last degree on each trip, which is challenge enough for a group of non-polar explorers who just like a challenge. But yeah, that for me, that's where enjoyment lives, right? It's in the challenge of being out of your comfort zone and really figuring out what you're capable of, and you only really figure out what you're capable of as an individual when you are tested like you've never been tested before, and whether that's, you know, in extreme weather, or, you know, it might even be as simple as standing up on stage and having to deliver a keynote, you know, but it doesn't have to be a grandiose challenge. We test ourselves in different ways every day, but I suppose for me, the doing side of things is what really gives me a buzz. And when I get to do it with people and support each other and feel supported, the warmth and the bonds that you create is very similar, Piers, to your question of what we had in 2003. And when I reconnect with the 2003 team, or when I reconnect with some of the lads that I went to the lads or ladies I went to Costa Rica with, or the team that went to North or South Pole with, the feeling is the same. You've done something special together. And if it has been really testing, then those bonds aren't forged, you know, they're tight, those bonds that are forged, because you've experienced something unique together.
Yeah. Of those challenges, and you talk through a few of them in terms of the poles and the points of the compass, and it all sounds incredible. Is there any one situation you found yourself in that's been perhaps the most extreme, or the most, not necessarily dangerous, because you say extreme can mean different things to different people in different situations, but any point along any of those challenges where you thought, geez, this, you know, I might not be able to do this. This is actually one step too far.
Oh, good question. I don't think I've ever felt that, thankfully, myself. The only time I felt genuine concern was when we got to, was when we arrived in Norway to depart. So it's where you depart to go to, where we departed anyway, to go to the North Pole. And I forget the name of the place now. So problem of having played rugby for 16 years. My memory is useless. But I remember feeling out of my comfort zone to a degree where, you know, we're having to sew fur rims into the jackets that we had, and I'd never sewn anything in my life. I was like, and Alan was just like, lads, choose a fur and then go away and sew it on. I was like, am I going to be the only person to go for the hand of a guy? I've got no idea how to sew. So I was sat in our little room with Danny Grucock, who was another World Cup winning colleague of mine. So Danny and Josh came in the first trip, Josh Lucy, and I was just copying him, like pretending I knew what I was doing. That was feeling most probably uncomfortable and out.
So actually, so you're saying here that trekking to the North and South Pole, the worst part of all of that was sitting with a needle and thread in your bedroom trying to stitch something together. That
sounds silly now that I say it, but no, I can tell you the genuinely the most scared I've ever been in my life was we were in the South Pole. That was a genuine discomfort when I didn't know what I was doing, and because that feeling of, oh God, I don't know how to sew suddenly leads to, if I don't know how to do this, am I going to be able to get all the rest of my kit sorted? And what about the admin that I need to, you know, the cold prep that I've got to get through when I'm out and I'm pulling a sled, and have I got things in the right place? So you go sort of into a spiral of things anyway. But I managed to get myself back together. But I think the most fearful I've ever been was we were walking in sort of day 3 in the South Pole, and Alan noticed behind us this sort of cloud bank that, I mean, it literally stretches across the entire horizon because there's nothing, just flat white snow. And you could tell that he started to get a thinking in his head. He's like, right, okay, this sort of weather system's coming our way. I don't know what it is. It's pretty big. But we stopped anyway, and it's a beautiful day, like blue sky, other than just this like bank of cloud approaching. And we started putting the tent up, and Alan started digging this like sort of snow defense around his tent. And we're like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, well, you know, it's just if the wind's really strong, it'll come and the barrier will sort of deflect the snow around the tent. I was like, right, okay. So we all obviously copying the Polar Explorer, like digging this. And as we were digging these, they're just like walls, snow walls that protect the tent. This massive explosion occurred. Like, it was like an earthquake. Just, we were stood there on this, so on the plateau, on the polar plateau, and it was just sounded like, and I looked at Alan because I was like, he'll obviously know what that is. He was having been multiple times, and he was looking at me in a similar way. It was like, what was that? So we sort of stopped and chatted for a minute, and I felt genuine, like, you know, when your sort of stomach churns, your heart races, and I'm looking around thinking, okay, I genuinely feel like we're at the mercy of Mother Nature now. I've never felt a sense of, there's a word that I can't find. It's like just there's nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do that was going to potentially make any difference. So
what was it? Was it ice cracking or something? Do you know what the noise was?
So what it was the polar plateau sits in like a basin, and every now and again the basin displaces the water that has dripped down around the edges of the however many thousands of miles it is, and it just drops essentially a millimeter, and that's what occurred. But because of this massive boom, that we didn't find out what it was until we made it to the South Pole. So that's like 3 or 4 days later. So in the hours ahead, once we're waiting for this weather front to approach, we're just I'm like, are we going to make it through the night? And we're going to wake up in the morning? All these types of things go through your mind. And I genuine.
That's proper fear of the unknown, isn't it?
That was fear, yeah.
God.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Looking back, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, well, again, it's all relative. I don't know whether I'd enjoy that. Again, it takes a certain person and a certain mentality to find to enjoy that kind of things. For me, I mean, that sounds horrific, but all respect to you guys for doing that. Amazing. Slightly different, slightly similar tack. That you talked us through, a moment that where you experienced genuine fear. Tell us about a moment where you've experienced genuine pride with the work of the foundation. What's something that sticks in your mind in terms of giving you a great sense of pride?
A great sense of pride for family. Do you know what? You're so focused on the doing sometimes. I don't know if I've ever stopped to think about that. I suppose personally, I'm really proud that I've been able to honour a young man that meant a lot to me, and that I got to know well, and hopefully provided a platform that has given him his family joy as well to be a part of. I suppose that some of the projects that we've been able to fund and seeing some of the impact that the projects have, the people that we've galvanized and got involved in a cause that they'd otherwise not heard of. There's probably something really poignant and emotive that I'm missing, but off the top of my head, actually, do you know what? It's difficult to think about the fact that we're still here 10 years on, and it's just me and Annie, and the individual personnel that have come in and supported us through the Brain Tumour Charity along the way. I suppose makes me feel proud. I don't stop to think about it enough. I suppose I just. Yeah, because there's always a sense of you probably should have done a little bit more, or you could have raised more, or say you're always searching for the next thing. I'm really grateful for people like Ollie Highway, Kev Fisher, various other people that I've met who are living with brain tumours and who are the reason that we do what we do, and that have engaged and given us so much support and so much of their time. Continually, like Ollie's just a legend. Like, he always wants to come and talk to the teams. He always wants to share a video. He'll often bring to all the launch events that we have. He's bought in the past socks. He's bought for every member. He's bought notebooks. So his wife makes these awesome notebooks. The ones for the South Pole had a map of the South Pole inside them, which was really cool. And I suppose, having the support of those guys makes me feel proud, because it makes me feel like you're making a small bit of difference, even if it's just with Ollie and having, I don't know, even if, just.
But it's more than a small difference, Lewis. It's a massive difference, and we see that. What are the next few years for you, Lewis? How do you think you want to be remembered by? As a rugby player, as a philanthropist, the foundation? What does the landscape look like?
Sorry.
What's the next few years look like though with the foundation?
That's a really good question. We've got a meeting in place to sit down. One of the things that we're really good at, when we first started, was having a roadmap as to what we wanted to achieve and the challenges that we wanted to do and the dinners and projects that we wanted to fund. And we've got another meeting that looks at the future. in the next month, which is really exciting in terms of, the looking at what we have funded and what impact, that might have made, and projects that, maybe didn't continue for whatever reason. And then what challenges we will undertake to fundraise for those projects as well. So that's quite exciting. I love those meetings. I love sitting down with people and creating and figuring out some goals and some ambitions and what are the stepping stones to get there, and setting some sort of realistic but ambitious targets. I think that's something that I've always enjoyed doing. But yeah, I don't have a clear roadmap of what the future looks like for the first time in a while.
Do you have a wish list of challenges, things you'd like to do?
There's probably too many, actually. There's so many to do.
What's at the top of the list?
The top of the list is one that I never finished. So I went to the Yukon, took on an ultra marathon, and that was 10 years ago. And I didn't finish it. I got to 100 miles and I got frostbite. So it's the only challenge I've never finished. So I'm quite keen to do that. But yeah, so that will be, maybe that's a personal thing for me that I might do with Alan, or I might, if there's enough people interested, we can take a team. There's some
unfinished business.
Yeah, there's unfinished business. That's a personal one that I really want to do. When we have the team challenges with the foundation, I feel a large degree of responsibility, obviously, because my name is on the event, and God forbid anything would go wrong. That lands on my shoulders. So when we're on the challenges, I feel a great weight of responsibility to make sure everyone gets through safely and supported and enjoys it. And so I think there's something around doing a bit of fundraising on my own, and doing a challenge for me in the future that I'm quite looking forward to. But I mean, there is literally tons of stuff. There are parts of the world that I'd like to explore that I haven't reached yet. And I think when we sit down and have a meeting, I'd like to unearth those. Some are a little bit out of reach at the minute due to the state that the world is in, which is a bit frustrating. But yeah, I'll come back to you on that one. But for me, the next one I really want to do is finish off the Yukon. It's like a real personal one. And I'm pretty sure, actually, looking at the group of individuals that we've collected for the Sahara trip, they're a really fit bunch. So, I'm kind of in my mind thinking, I'm sure I can recruit a couple of people.
Well, if you can take them from the heat, if they're good, if they experience the heat, then they might as well experience the cold as well.
And the cold's so much nicer, honestly. I've not, well, I can report back after the Sahara, and I've got sand in all sorts of places I never wanted.
Thanks, Lewis. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. We've taken up a lot of your time this afternoon, so I'm really grateful for you giving us your time. One last question for you. Talk about challenge events. What's the one sort of golden nugget of advice you'd give somebody who might be just thinking about taking on a challenge event themselves? What's the one thing you'd say to them?
I think that's quite easy for me. It's just in the doing. I think often we can get stuck in overthinking, or you'll see something. Often what happens is I talk about a challenge in the room or an event or somewhere, and a load of people go, I really want, this has been on my list for I really want to do it. I was like, okay, here's the sign up page. They're like, yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna get onto that tomorrow. And tomorrow turns the next day and the next day. So, Lao Tzu, who was a Chinese philosopher, said that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And honestly, for me, it's just in taking the first step. And that's normally signing up. Once you've done it, you'll never regret it. And everyone that's been on a challenge with us, or whether it's with the Brain Tumour Charity, all the great stuff that they're putting on and doing, no one ever regrets it. They love it. So in answer to your question, it would just be take that first step and just commit to something. Don't overthink it. Just do it.
Fill in that form and click submit. There you go. Lewis, thank you very much. I think you agree, Piers. That's been a cracking interview. Thank you so much.
I love it. I love the stories. I love those polar stories.
Yeah, it's cool. It's so much fun, honestly. You'll have to come one day, Piers.
Yeah. No, I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to sign up soon. Oh, Lewis, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure, guys.
In each episode of the Charity Show, we want to celebrate our sector superstars, those incredible people working, volunteering and fundraising across our sector. And you can nominate your deserving colleagues, volunteers, or email us at thecharityshowpod@gmail.com or get in touch through the links in the show notes. You can even send us a voice message that we can play out in the next episode. So, who's your superstar this week, Piers?
Well, actually, this story just jumped out at me so much, Tim, that it's not really a person, but it's a thing. It's fundraising vending machines. Now, I'd seen these in the States a while back now, and a Midlands shopping centre in Solihull. There's 3 of them, and they'll have donation cards with a rising scale of donations to buy things such as mosquito nets or a clean water kit or a humanitarian tent for the associated charities such as Shelter Box, Muslim Aid, Fair Share, and Little Hearts Matter, which is a charity that organises donations to children recovering from heart surgery. These vending machines are brought to the UK by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as part of their annual Light the World Christmas initiative, and just like a really interesting fundraising idea. Shelter Box, which is one of the charities that are going to be part of the machines, Shelter Box's Director of Fundraising and Communications, Lisa McCall, said, "The Light the World vending machine is a fun and festive fundraising initiative which will help Shelter Box continue our crucial work, supporting families uprooted from their homes by disaster or conflict." And she goes on to say the wonderful people who donate through these vending machines will be making a tangible difference to people who have often lost not only their homes, but loved ones and livelihoods too. So any visitors to Solihull over the festive season is going to see a really interesting and unique way of fundraising and supporting charities with these vending machines. Fascinating stuff.
Love that. I think that's a great idea. Fascinated to see how that goes down, and see if they end up sort of spreading a bit further. Love that story. So my superstar this week, again, a bit of a different one. It's a story that really touched me. And my superstar this week is a whole charity. So Yorkshire Children's Charity and its CEO Charlotte Barrington. Now they're an incredible organisation, and they're providing warm essentials such as coats, pyjamas and bedding to 161 schools across their region to keep children warm and to ensure that they continue to attend school throughout these cold winter months. And I think as a parent, you can't help but be moved by this. I mean, Charlotte says that demand for her charity and for these items has doubled, with nearly 2,000 children supported over the last year as a result of the financial pressures that are on their parents. And the charity also says that many of the families it supports struggle with complex living situations and life challenges in addition to poverty. And figures show that 67% of the applications they received last year cited abuse, neglect, criminal exploitation, homelessness or illness. And over half of the families have children who have additional educational needs. I just thought, I mean, what an amazing organisation doing that work. And I'm sure there are lots of other similar organisations across the country, but it really struck me as, modern day Britain, how can we let this happen? How can that be a thing? How can poverty be so significant that, it's stopping children from going to school because they're cold? They don't have coats, pajamas, bedding to stay warm. I just think it's shocking. So I think you can't help but be moved by that. And I think, so hats off to Charlotte and the team at Yorkshire Children's Charity. You're doing an incredible job. Really amazing.
So that's it for episode 14. Huge thanks to Lewis for giving us an insight into the Lewis Moody Foundation. And don't forget, you can keep track of his Sahara trek over the next few days. We'll put the links to do so in the show notes. And we've got some other great guests coming up in the next few episodes too.
Yeah, absolutely. In a fortnight's time, we're going to be joined by ChrisHoy, the outgoing Chief Executive of the RSPCA and the soon-to-be new CEO of the NSPCC. So we're going to talk to him about the challenges that come with leading such long-established and successful charities. And then in a few weeks' time after that, we're going to be talking about major donors and philanthropy with Sally Williams. So there's plenty for everyone to get their teeth into over the next few weeks, Piers.
Looking forward to it. And don't forget, you can be part of the show too. Just send us your voice messages or get in touch through any of the links in the show notes to share your stories and tell us what you'd like us to cover.
Also, don't forget, we want to know who your superstar fundraisers are, as well as your volunteers or colleagues as well. So head to the show notes and share their total brilliance with the rest of us.
And in the meantime, please follow or subscribe to us on your usual podcast platform and leave us a review, both of which will help others to find the show.
So that's it for a pretty packed episode. Thanks for listening, take care, and we'll see you soon.